Welcome, one and all, to the 20th episode of the XP Billionaires. Imagine that, guys. We are at 20 episodes. Who'd have thought we'd have made it this long? Seriously.
I did.
Oh,
Sky has a lot of faith in us.
I appreciate the faith. Don't get me wrong. I just, I don't know where I was going with that. But anyway.
I figured we'd probably, I never really considered the number episode we would eventually get up to, you know? Like I haven't put a lot of thought into it. This is just fun for me. I get to chat video games with two people I actually enjoy chatting video games with, so.
No, and it's definitely a mutual experience. Otherwise, I would have fired you long ago.
Wow. Right. Sleep on the curb when you come over.
All right. Well, this is the XP Billionaires. This is Ray Fegram speaking, and we've got Sky Knight and Irene Rogue. Apparently, we're all in a fairly good mood, although I may have just soured things with Irene, but you guys be the judge. Well, 20th episode, so we've done quite a lot. We've had so many different topics. We've got lots of options that we can revisit, some new stuff down the pipeline as well. But before we get started with today's episode, I figured we would take some time to make a few announcements regarding the group. So we have picked up a hobo. So
yes.
Now before you guys call the cops, let me explain. So
we promise we're not making them fight to the death in some weird hobo arena.
No. What we've done is we've got a new member of the XP Billionaires, somebody working behind the scenes with us right now. Their name is Hannah Bard.
So
it's Hannah.
Hannah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hannah Bard, yes, our beloved Hannah Bard. And I'm just going to point out that a while ago we started an episode with do we party? And then I mentioned that we didn't have a bard, but now we do have a bard, so we officially party.
We do. Yeah, absolutely. So what Hannah's actually doing for us? Oh, and I should mention we have nicknamed them the XP Hobo. And the reason we've done that is because they're not much of a gamer.
Yes.
Not yet. We are working on that, and maybe their status will improve over time. But right now, what they've been doing for us is they've been creating transcripts for all of our podcasts, and I believe doing some stuff for some of the YouTube things, or at least that was down the pipeline.
Yes, down the pipeline.
Yeah. So it hasn't happened yet, but all the transcripts will be up on the WordPress site. So for anybody who would just like to, or who would prefer to read our podcast, they will be fully scripted. And we've already had a look at a lot of them, and they are fantastic. So they're very accurate to what we're doing, and we have nothing but gratitude for the work that Hannah does.
Right?
Yeah. So we're working on them to get some more gaming experience. I know. Sky, you had them playing Torment at one point, Tides Numenera.
Yep.
And I know they're playing The Sims pretty heavily right now.
Yeah, they kind of live in our house sometimes.
A little bit. So we wanted to give some shout out and welcome to Hannah. And yeah, by all means, we will be extending invitations for you guys to follow them on Twitter. Has the Twitter account been created yet?
Not yet, but I will be posting about it when the Twitter is up. It's not up as of time of recording. But it should be by the time this releases. So just watch our Twitter feeds. You'll hear about it there.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. So that's some of our big exciting news. The XP Hobo has also been on most, if not all, of our Twitch streams from the beginning. So they're very supportive of our work, and I'm again eternally grateful for it.
Right?
Thrilled to bits.
Yep. And I must admit, I love the transcripts. The accessibility option for it is awesome.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, we care about all of our listeners and even our readers in this case. So by all means, have check them out no matter what, whether you need to or not. At least look at them and just see how great they are. Is that all the big news, or is there anything else?
Oh, there was my feature that was supposed to go up, but we can talk about it at the end.
Oh,
Oh, no, no,
bring it
no,
up, bring it up.
absolutely. Yeah, bring that up. Yeah, you've been working on something, and I know you've talked about it in the past, but let's hear about it officially.
Yeah, so it should be up by the time this goes out. I have written a little blurb a little feature for the WordPress site about Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice and its final combat scene. I wanted to really get into the analysis of perhaps some of the symbolism being used, what especially and how it especially made me feel as a person, as the player, and as somebody who has, full disclosure, struggled with anxiety and in the past. So it was a great little thing to write, and I'm really eager to share it with all of you. Though warning, it does go into a lot of heavy detail in terms of that final sequence. So if you haven't seen my live stream yet, it's up on the YouTube channel, and I highly recommend you watch that first if you've not seen the ending to the game. And then hopefully it'll be enlightening, or at least provide a different perspective or a new way of thinking when you take a look at that ending and why I think this game is so great.
No, definitely. And yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic thing for you to have done. And I hope we can put more articles like that, or at least final thoughts articles on games we've played, onto there as well. I think it's a great start for what we can do for to just improve our visibility with the WordPress site. So thank
Yeah, I had a lot of fun writing it. It was it was very interesting.
you. Oh, that's
Yeah,
that.
I'm going to put up a features section on the WordPress site where you'll be able to find any sort of written works that we post. So that's where you'll find Irene's article, and it'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, now we've got all of that out of the way. We're going to take a short break from heavy video game conversation with this episode. And, I said, for episode 20, we should go big. But at the same time, I wanted to hear from everybody. I wanted to hear from you, the listeners. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to do a Q&A episode where we basically we reached out to Twitter and asked for questions. So you guys could just get to know us better. I mean, even the first episode gave you some information, but this lets you get a little bit more into our twisted little minds. And I think that's fun. So we've got a couple of questions that were sent to me via Twitter, DM, or just as a comment from Twitter. And I'm going to mention everybody who sent me a question, and I guess we're just going to answer them for you. Well, let's get started with our first question. I think that's a great first question that we received. This question comes from Nikki, who is one of the hosts of the Game Till 5 podcast. And I highly recommend you guys check that podcast out. Check out their Twitter at Game Till 5. They basically do top 5 lists related to video games. And in the process of doing so, they include several different fun facts about their choices. So it's actually a really interesting listen to, as opposed to them just discussing the character. They really give you a lot more insight into things. And and these facts can range right up into the development stage or into the pre-planning stage. So it's really insightful, and these two are just fun and charming. So please check them out if you get the opportunity. That said, the first question, and there's a follow-up to it afterwards. First question is, how did you guys meet? And the follow-up is, how did the podcast come around? So we'll start with the first half. Sky, you say you are the common thread in all of this. So let's have you take care of this one.
Well, I'll start it anyway. So basically, Rafe and I met in a comic book store in 2005. I was the customer, he was the cashier. We've been together ever since. basically.
There really is no long story about that. It really was. It was a long day for me at the very least because my store was it was basically right next to a lounge. And right after closing, we're still sitting there just chatting for I think it was like another 3 hours after we closed up shop.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked forever.
Yeah. I don't know
Aw.
what it I don't know what it was, but it was the right thing. So, um, yeah, it was just a random Saturday. I remember that. Yeah, like there's really, yeah, that's the long and short of it, at least between the two of us. And then Irene comes along.
Yeah.
This would have been 2007 when Irene and I met in a university class and discovered we both loved video games.
Yeah, and a funny story about that, especially from my perspective, because it was a bit straight, it was a bit serendipitous and a bit strange, like in retrospect. So we had that same class together. I think it was a Celtic Studies class. I can't really remember.
Christianity, I believe.
We took a few Celtic Studies classes together, and the entire Celtic Studies department at this university was like one guy who really
One
liked
guy
Celtic
and a couple,
Studies.
yeah, one guy and a couple of part-timers.
Yep. So like his classes were always very interesting, but it was a very they were it was literally always the same prof.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's why I'm saying it was difficult to tell exactly which one because we took multiple of his courses. But I had another friend in that class, and she and Sky got to chatting after the class, and I assumed that they knew each other because I don't know, I just made that assumption. And we all went to lunch, and then that's when we discovered that we both liked video games and we sort of clicked. And that was kind of it. We've been friends ever since. And months later, hanging out with Sky and Rafe, all this time, I learned that Sky actually had no idea who this girl was. Like,
Yeah.
the person I thought that Sky knew, Sky had no idea who they were. It was just literally random luck.
Yeah, I do that sometimes.
Yeah, it's like I assumed that they knew each other because I was like, oh yeah, they're talking and they're friendly. Clearly they know each other from a different class or something. Nope, they had no idea. So it was just like three weird strangers all out getting lunch together. And then I think like 2 weeks after we met, I helped you move a now mutual friend
Yep.
on the bus. That was fun. Or something like that. I can't quite remember. All I remember was getting a frantic text message or phone call like, "Oh my god, we need your help right now to move.
No,
I will
no.
pay for your lunch."
It was I had double booked myself. I had told you I was going to hang out after class and
Right.
and I had promised this friend that I would help with some moving stuff. So I was like, "Please come along and help. I'll buy you lunch."
It was a good thing I did come and help because I'm not sure we would have made it between like in the break period.
Yeah.
Just you and just you and her.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other story, listeners, is moving this one friend multiple times. It's never it's always a story.
Yeah, it is. All right, Rafe, why don't you handle the follow-up?
Yeah, so the podcast itself came about very slowly, I will admit. It stemmed from an idea that I had a couple of years ago where I started a WordPress blog that focused on just old school RPG gaming. So, talking specifically about games from previous generations. And I was starting from like PS2 era and back. I would basically write up reviews, top five lists, and just kind of like live written playthroughs as I was playing through games, just talking about my thoughts about them at that point. After about a year of doing that, I realized that it was a lot more work than I really had the time for between work and just gaming and wanting to play new stuff. as it was coming out. So I found that to be a bit of a challenge. So I ended up stopping, but I still wanted to set my mark on the internet. Um, and eventually I just realized that I still love talking about video games. And there were really only two people that I could really have an in-depth video game conversation with. So I asked them, like, how would you guys feel about being in a podcast about RPG gaming? And I don't think I got any resistance whatsoever from you guys at all.
No, because this is basically just recording what we normally talk about anyway.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like basically, as I remember the conversation going, it was like, I was like, are you gonna make me edit this thing? And you were like, no. I was like, okay then.
Do I have to do any editing? No. Okay, I'm in.
Exactly. Okay.
All
So
right.
that pretty much
So
covered
yeah,
it.
yeah, no, that was a great startup. So thank you again, Nikki, for the question. And yeah, I hope you end up listening to this to know that we're just as good of fans of you as you guys are of us.
It
So
was 2007. I've known you guys for more than 10 years. Holy balls.
you just realized this now.
It just took a minute to sink in. I'm old.
I was in third year of university when we met, so I'm pretty sure of that timeline.
Uh, yeah, I would have started school 2006, the fall. Yeah, I would have been starting my second year.
Yep.
Yeah, 2007, either late 2007 or early 2008. Yeah, that checks out.
Yep.
Oh my god.
And we've broken Irene's brain already.
Uh,
Well, that didn't take long.
no.
All right, next question.
Okay, so this next question comes from uh, Geek Heart Games, another podcasting group. We've gotten to know quite a few different groups, and again, I really appreciate you guys bringing these questions in. But definitely check them out as well. They're at Geek Heart Games, all one word. But yeah, definitely check out what they've got. And the question they have for us is, what is your ideal RPG length, and what is too long of a game? So, well, I'll start on this one for just because I'm still on the fence on this one, really. Like for me, it really depends on how engaging the game is from a story and character perspective. Um, the more engaging it is, the more likely I'm going to do an 8-hour binge session on a day off, thus making a game that has a longer hourly completion expectation more worthwhile because I can plow through it a little faster. Sort of. It at least feel like I'm going through it faster. So a longer game is acceptable as long as it's not really filled with pointless busy work. I mean, I struggled to quantify this, but I would have to say like 60 hours is acceptable for a main storyline with the occasional side questing. And if I like the game enough, I'll do more. Yeah, that's my take on it. Guy, what do you think?
Ideally, I prefer games around the 40 to 50 hour mark, but it does depend on the game. Like the length should be appropriate for the story. However, I do find most things over 100 hours excessive. Most games can't maintain my attention for that long, and I'm yearning for something new at that point. All right, Irene?
So, it really, I guess the main question is how much of a grind is there? Honestly, I'm more upset if it's too short usually because I'm not done living in the story yet. Like, I really want the game developers to like take their time to develop their world, their characters, and tell the story to its completion. Like, take those opportunities to go down like unexpected avenues. But at the same time, I don't necessarily want to have to just like repeat the same quest over and over again and in order to move forward, right? So, like 60 hours is about right, but like I will hit a point eventually if I get like the longer I go in a game, if I hit a setback, I'm more likely to just be like, right, I'm running for the end now, you know? rather than, well, I'll continue to plug in another 10, 20 hours into this game in order to recover from the setbacks. Like, no, I think I'll just run at the boss now. It's just it's really a gut feel thing. It's not necessarily a specific time length that I like.
Yeah, I mean, mine was more of a, I guess, an average.
Yeah.
Because there are tons of games that I love, including some of my favorite games like Suikoden, where it's nowhere near the 40 to 50 hour mark.
Yeah, you've put that much time in and more though from all the times you've played it.
Well, true, but I mean, talking about playthroughs here, but I mean, I've also played stuff like the Persona games, which I usually clock about 80 hours in those, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I put in something crazy like 130 hours or
Yeah, totally crazy. And here's just me side-eyeing my Borderlands 2 playtime.
yeah, you don't
It's
want to
more than
see
that.
you don't want to see my Sims playtime. Uh, though though to be fair, the hobo is artificially raising that playtime.
Yeah, the
But
only it's like Steam lets me know how long I've played Borderlands 2 on Steam.
yeah,
I have it for the PS4 as well.
yeah. So, I mean, like, it depends on the game, it depends on the story, it depends on how engaging it is, like Rafe said.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the shortest RPGs I've played, Kodelka, I don't want it to be any longer.
Yeah, and like I just announced that I was posting that Hellblade feature, right? I think Hellblade would have not necessarily been as good if it were longer than it was.
Yeah.
It told the story. That's why I was like, I don't necessarily want to put an hour mark on it and say like I want it to tell the story it needs to tell and develop the characters and develop the world in a way that it feels like a complete narrative.
Okay.
Don't leave stuff on the table. Like if there's this really interesting side character and you made them really interesting, actually maybe, wrap up their narrative somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Okay. Let's get on to the next question.
Okay, so the next question we have comes from Honorary Corvid on Twitter. And this is an interesting question. I kind of like the idea of this hypothetical. You're going on an all expenses paid vacation with an RPG character of your choosing. Who do you pick and where do you go?
Okay, I
So
want to know like what, as I mentioned on Twitter, what is the context of this relationship? Am I friends with this RPG character? Are they more than friends? Are they
it's your choice.
Wherever you want to go.
mm.
Yeah, yeah. I say sky's the limit here. So
So I'm going first then. Um, all right. I would pick. I thought about it real hard, and what I landed on was Tottori Helmold from Atelier Tottori. She'd be a lovely traveling companion because she's so sweet, but she has this unending spirit of adventure that, and she's this skinny little thing, and she looks like a strong wind would blow her over, right? But
Yep.
she's way stronger than she appears, and she's determined as all get out. There's a lot of will in that young lady, and I honestly think that we would just go to the UK and explore every nook and cranny we could. She would just be such a lovely traveling companion. So that's who I'm going with.
Aw.
Yeah.
okay, well, for me, my choice again. I also had to think about this one because it was a weird idea, but my choice was Futaba from Persona 5. And no, it is not for any naughty reasons.
She's a
Pure,
teenager.
yes. But the reason I choose her is because we would basically test the limits of all expenses paid by spending a week in Akihabara. We
You
would
would do
buy
that. Yep.
all the figures, all the toys, everything we could ever want. I have no idea how I would get it all past customs, but I would do it.
Yeah, I think they actually have to like weigh your bags at that point and charge you by weight.
Yeah, usually
I'd
how
probably
those things
use the
work.
all expenses paid to like just mail it all to me.
Yeah.
That might actually be the best way to do it, to be honest, because like
Yeah.
I don't think they'll let you physically carry on that much. Sir, this is a commercial flight, and you cannot bring on 20 bags.
You cannot bring on a trailer full of boxes.
Sir, your trailer will not attach to the plane. I don't understand why you thought it would, ever. It cannot just trail behind the plane like a snake. It will drag it down and kill everyone. This was very poorly thought out. Why did you buy a trailer?
He found it at the side of a road.
Oh my god. Now I'm seeing Rafe just like, fine, I can't fly home with my trailer, and he finds like a dinghy and starts just rowing across the Pacific.
I'd do it.
You would.
Do it with all my I would do it with all my rider belts. Absolutely.
You can craft a dinghy out of all of your rider belts if you had to.
I don't
But
want to
then
damage them. I'm not
Yeah.
giving them water damage. The hell is wrong with you?
I was gonna say salt water's probably not good for them.
Oh my
I,
god.
I do not think so. No.
Would it float? Like, I'm having a hard time thinking that this trailer would float.
Yeah, I don't know.
This went in a very strange direction. All right.
Yeah. Let's go with Irene. Where would you go? And with who?
I had to think really long and hard about this, and to be honest, I'm still waffling a little bit back and forth. I'm thinking that I would pick Lilith from Borderlands, the Borderlands series. One, because she can teleport, so we can literally go fucking anywhere and never have to worry about where we're going. She's competent enough to handle any unknown situation, and she's just straight up fun. So it would be an interesting time, for sure. She'd managed to find the weirdest, funnest thing. Also, she is canonically a giant nerd, so I'm sure we'd find some gaming stores and some cool shit to hit up as well.
All right.
Plus, if anyone tries to hassle us, she can just turn them into ashes. Or, teleport them into the sun. Also possible.
This went in a sinister direction all of a sudden.
Hey, well, I am a petite, little, delicate thing. I need protection when I'm traveling.
Yes, because you're a delicate flower, dear.
Very delicate. Like, listeners, I might qualify as a hobbit. I'm not entirely sure. I'm pretty short.
All right. Well, we've got one more question that I really do want to get to before we wrap up today, because it was also a really, really good question. And this one came to me from a DM from someone named Tyler. And the question is, with all the different mainstream video game genres out there, what is it about RPGs that makes us so passionate about them? Irene, why don't you give us a start this time?
Story. Honestly, RPGs have historically had the most fantastic and engaging stories across all genres of video games. Especially when I was growing up. Like, you gotta remember, back in the 90s, it was difficult to get a game that wasn't an RPG that had that deep narrative in it. Like, Nintendo was doing some stuff with, like, Zelda, but even so, I would say that the level of narrative that you can achieve with an RPG is totally different. Just because, like, the suspension of disbelief is much higher, so you're not grounded in, like, oh, well, I have to make the character do this mechanically in order to make the game work. It's like, no, they can summon gods, they can fly, they can do whatever you want, they can look like whatever you want, go wherever you want. There's nothing really binding them. And I think that sort of narrative freedom is part of the reason that I turned to RPGs, because, like, I've always been, like, a passionate reader. I've always been very interested in stories, and RPGs just lend themselves that much better to them than other genres. Not that other game genres aren't capable of having, like, a strong narrative. That's not so at all. I'm just saying that from an ease of transition between something with a very strong story and a game, an RPG is a very natural choice.
No, fair enough. Absolutely. Okay, Sky, what are your thoughts? What makes RPG so special to you?
Story, story, and story?
Oh
I mean,
no.
really, I have a lifelong obsession with fiction and writing, and being interested in RPGs it's just an extension of that, ultimately. A good story I can interact with in a more visceral way is like a leaf of gold to me. And, that's why I love RPGs. And there are other genres that have that element, point and click adventures, visual novels, games like The Sims for making your own stories, for much the same reasons. But RPGs are my favorite because in most cases they marry gameplay I can actually be, relatively decent at with a story that I love. So it's all good to me.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, as for me, I mean, it really comes out of being a matter of history for me. When I mentioned on our first episode, my first RPG was the original Dragon Quest for the NES. It was also the third NES game I ever played, with the first two being Mario and Duck Hunt, obviously because they came with the Nintendo when you got it. Growing up after that, my cousin was a huge influence on what games I was exposed to, and most of the time they were RPGs. He was the one that introduced me to Final Fantasy VI. He's the one that introduced me to Xenogears. There's so many more. I can build a whole list, but like those are two of the really big ones that I can remember him giving me access to when I would go visit. So there are plenty of definitely other great genres out there. I always go back to RPGs because that's just what influenced me as a child. So even now, like, again, we're talking story, but you think about games like, Final Fantasy VI, for example, that was such a beautiful narrative for a Super Nintendo game. Like, and the fact that that story can still stack up today, it still amazes me. So that's really what gives me their charm, is that it's a medium that has been able to transcend,
Tech.
tech. And yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the best answer.
Yeah, a lot
So
of RPGs still hold up extremely well from like 20 years ago, even because, again, they're their own self-contained thing. And they don't necessarily have to have those like photorealistic graphics in order to be engaging. They never have. They're not a, despite being a visual and interactive media, they've never relied heavily on the visuals in order to tell the story. There are other ways to do it.
yeah, that's absolutely right. And yeah, and I will always give them credit for that. But on that note, that is 20 episodes. Congratulations, we've made it.
Oh my god.
I know. I know it's really impressive. So yeah, thank you guys for listening this long. We've got plenty more planned for you. There's more on the pipeline. We've got lots more streams coming. We've got lots more things we're going to do with YouTube, with WordPress. I'm really excited about where we're going with all of this. So I hope you guys continue to take that ride with us. And if you have anything you'd like to see or hear on any of our platforms, feel free to give us a shout on Twitter. You can reach me at Billionaires XP. And don't forget to check me on Twitch Wednesdays. Yeah, Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm at Sky Knight XP on both Twitter and Twitch, and I stream on Tuesdays.
Yeah. And Irene, you are always somewhere. Where are those places?
I'm at irogue_XP on Twitter and Twitch, and I stream on Thursdays usually. I tend to gravitate more towards like your action RPGs and uh, weird little niche games. Like at some point, I'm gonna have to go back to Subnautica to keep streaming on that. But for now, it's Horizon because Aloy's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely. Yeah, and like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, there's still our WordPress site, xpbillionaires.wordpress.com, where you're going to find the transcripts for all of our past episodes. We've got a lot of them coming are out already, and more to come for even older ones. And again, we're 20 episodes in. We're not going anywhere one way or the other. But if you do like what you're listening to, please send us a donation through Coffee. That's coffee.com/xpbillionaires. All right. So 20 episodes in, 20 more to go. Let's keep gaining, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.